Ladies and gentlemen, getting everybody up here. Ladies and gentlemen, and may it please the court, I present the University of Iowa College of Law class of 2013. All rise. Good afternoon. My name is Gail Agrawal, and I am delighted to welcome you to the 2013 graduation ceremony for the Iowa College of Law. Today, I'm joined on the platform by Provost Barry Butler, who has the most important role of the day. He will confer the degrees a little bit later on. By Regent Robert N. Downer from the Iowa class of 1963, Senator Norman Coleman, a member of our class of 1976, and by the extraordinary faculty of the Iowa College of Law. On behalf of the college, I extend a special welcome and sincere congratulations to the spouses and partners, parents and grandparents, children and friends of this day's graduates. I know that without your support, these newly minted lawyers would not be here today. So I ask the graduates to join me in giving you a big hand. I turn now to the main order of the day, when I have the privilege of exercising one of the truly enjoyable prerogatives of a dean, addressing the members of the class in the last few seconds, minutes, that they spend as Iowa law students. The late Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "The law is the calling of thinkers," and each of you has been called to the law. With some considerable efforts by you and by your teachers, you have been transformed. You arrived, fuzzy-headed first-year students, inclined to begin your responses with, "Well, I feel," that is, when you would respond at all. You leave us razor-sharp lawyers who permit no lapse in logic by anyone, anywhere, ever, to go unidentified or unchallenged. As dean, I congratulate you and your long-suffering teachers on this great achievement. And to those in the audience who shared these law students' school journey, my faculty colleagues and I formally and publicly apologize for any collateral damage you might have suffered as the law student in your midst was learning to think and argue like a lawyer. We arrived together, the members of the class of 2013 and me. I remember meeting some of you as admitted students before classes began in the early weeks after I joined the faculty as its dean. You were living in New York and Chicago and Des Moines and Davenport, and you were confident enough, even then, to begin building your Iowa Law Network at receptions with alumni and with current students before the first day of classes. I learned later that you were building the collegiality that would characterize this class as you watched Paper Chase together, well before a single law professor would have a chance to call on any of you. You arrived at the Boyd Law Building on a hot day in mid-August. And since then, you have broken in one new dean and 9 new faculty members. And if I have to say it myself, you did really well. After all we have shared over the last 3 years, I wish I could stand here and say that you have even some small reluctance to leave us. But I worry, just a bit, that such an obvious lie, and in front of so many credible witnesses, might prompt a character and fitness inquiry of me by the Board of Bar Examiners, and that wouldn't do. So therefore, let the record reflect that you were apparently much more enthusiastic about leaving than I am about seeing you go. You've given us Scott Quellhorse and Abby Barteen's intellect, Ravi Narayan's skills at oral advocacy, and Julia Zelensky's unwavering commitment to social justice. With your departure, we will lose Mike Apple, and with him, our strong influence on the university's Executive Council of Graduate and Professional Students. I will miss the incomparable leadership of ISB co-presidents Abai Naidapuram and Brady Smith. And I fear my mornings will never be as bright as when Maddie Clay assured me that she was just fabulous this fine day, as she was, and indeed all of you are. Among you are immigrants and first-generation Americans, as well as second and third-generation Hawkeyes. Some of you are the first in your family to graduate from college, and a few of you managed to acquire new family members, spouse, child, during your law school years. You were former police officers and veterans of military service, and one of you is here today in dress whites. You came to us having already served in the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, and Teach for America. And some of you will leave us to serve in legal aid offices and as prosecutors and public defenders. Perhaps most impressive of all, for 3 years, collectively, you managed to keep the Iowa College of Law off the pages of Above the Law. And for that accomplishment, I am truly grateful. Yet, with all this distinction, the class of 2013, en masse, completely ignored the wise counsel of the learned Justice Holmes to law students to shun delights and live laborious days. I shared that with you at orientation. Hockey with Yaki, high tea with Elias, Mr. Iowa Law and Lawpalooza, Halloween parties, law proms, tailgates, and football games, and a party to mark 100 days before the bar exam. I remind you now, those days are counting down quickly. Suffice it to say, you also excelled in finding distractions to take you away from your law studies. In your more serious moments, you mastered Pearson v. Post, Paul's Graph, and Pennoyer. You hosted learned jurists, distinguished scholars, and state leaders. You discussed and debated the most pressing issues of the day, and this year, 8 of you put Iowa IP on the national map with your performance in copyright, trademark, and the patent law competitions. The board of the Iowa Law Review brought us to number 17 in the nation. In addition, you fully embraced the public service obligations of this learned profession. You spent your spring breaks doing pro bono legal service in Des Moines, Austin, Chicago, and New Orleans. And here at home, engaging in community lawyering and providing legal services to indigent clients who would otherwise not have legal representation. In total, the members of this class provided over 11,000 hours of pro bono and community service during your 3 years here. That beats the class of 2012, which was very distinguished by more than 1,500 hours. That is really quite an accomplishment. So, you are an extraordinary group. I was so honored to welcome you as 1Ls, and along with the faculty, I feel very privileged to have spent these 3 years with you. So congratulations on the last few minutes you're going to spend as our students. But now, it's time for me to relinquish the podium to one of your own. I invite Robert John Natupsky, who was elected by this class, to the podium to address us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Raised in a small town in Massachusetts, I never really knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had it narrowed down to a few, though. Fighter pilot, president, or Han Solo. And I would settle for any of these. I'm not an unreasonable man. But obviously none of them have quite panned out for me. Yet. So, pragmatic individual that I am, I decided that I would give this whole law school thing a shot. I came to this decision during my first and only stint as a juror, when all I could think to myself as the defense attorney spoke was, I could so do a better job than this guy. And so here I am, and here we are. Each of us has followed a different course down the river of life, navigating the often treacherous waters that appear along the way, ultimately electing to anchor to this jewel of the Midwest for a spell. Regardless of where or who we were before, the past 3 years have led us here, to this day in May, where we sit with bated breath, counting the seconds until we can throw these goofy hats up in the air. As much as this day is one of celebration and hard-won relief, though, it is a day of thanks as well. And it is fitting, then, that thanks are offered. Passive voice aside, I want to, on the behalf of the class of 2013, offer a heartfelt thanks to all of the faculty, family, and friends that have made this all possible. And, on my own behalf, I would like to specifically thank my mom and dad for putting up with my shenanigans all these years and for supporting me every step of the way. I've been quite blessed, as have we all, and for this I am truly grateful. I've learned a lot about the law these past 3 years. My admission essay, and I would wager the following holds true for most of us in attendance here today as well, spoke of the law as a tower on a hill, an idealistic arbiter of right versus wrong, a promise of justice for all. Over the past 3 years, that opinion has matured slightly. I now know that the only true statement about the law can be summarized thusly: it depends. But this is not a tale of disillusionment, because the legal profession has accomplished truly great things over the years. In 1954, the highest court in our land held that everyone has the right to an equal education. In 1963, it decided that everyone has a right to be represented by an attorney when the state hails them into court. And, hopefully, later this year, it will ensure that everyone has the right to marry the person that they love. And this is our calling. Thank you. And this is our calling. We will be, first and foremost, advocates. Others will depend on us in their hour of greatest need, placing the entirety of their faith in the notion that the legal system of this great nation will provide them relief. And we are to be entrusted as the stewards of that system. We must then make sure to remember our duty and the human element to which we owe it. We must tirelessly endeavor to see beyond the words on a page, the parties in an opinion, or the funds in a trust account, and, with all the power and will we can muster, advocate for strangers as strongly as we would ourselves. This is our calling. Now, I'd like to throw my favorite quote here in at the end. While I'm fully aware of the trite nature of this decision, I prefer to think of the words of the great men and women who have come before us as a type of precedent. And we all know how much those in our line of work love that. So I'll beg your indulgence here. It is from a poem entitled Success, and it is often attributed to Emerson. It goes something like this: to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. And succeed we will. I have the utmost faith and confidence in each and every one of you that I've come to know these past 3 years. In the practice of law, the saying, "it depends," certainly does hold true. But what it depends on is us. On me. On you. on what any one of us does on any given day when we take the interests of others into our now capable hands. And on this day, I am happy, because I know we will all chase greatness and break the tape at the finish line with a job well done. We finally made it through the gauntlet, and while this chapter of our lives is ending, the words there written will undoubtedly resonate throughout the rest of our stories. And for this, I thank you, my classmates, my colleagues, my friends, everyone who has allowed my breaths to issue more gently for having known you. I look forward to seeing you all over the next few days, not to say goodbye, but rather, until we meet again. Thank you for listening, and more importantly, congratulations.
While Rob is getting to his seat, I want to thank him for a very moving speech, and I want to clarify that there is no "it depends" about that. Today's commencement address will be given by Senator Norm Coleman. After dedicating more than 3 decades to public service, Senator Coleman is presently of counsel with the international law firm of Hogan and Lovells. He was a student activist in the 1960s, Minnesota's chief prosecutor and solicitor general in the 1970s and 80s, mayor of St. Paul in the 1990s, and he represented Minnesota in the U.S. Senate from 2003 to 2009. Senator Coleman received his undergraduate degree from Hofstra University and his JD with high honors from the Iowa College of Law in 1976. He was president of the Iowa Student Bar Association. He chaired the Collegiate Associations Council, and he was awarded a Hancher Finkbein Medallion for outstanding leadership. We are really proud to welcome him home to the Iowa College of Law. Senator Coleman, the podium is now yours.
Thank you, Dean, and Rob, your remarks were very moving. I'm humbled to be part of this special day not just for the graduates, but for the family, friends who join you in this celebration, and have been part of the journey that has brought you to this special moment. For the graduates, the paths that got you here are pretty diverse. Some came right out of college, some were in service, a whole range of things. But none of you got here alone, and the dean has already kind of asked for a round of applause for the families, but I just want to reiterate, for almost all of you, sitting here is a product of your hard work, but also the hard work and sacrifice of everybody in this audience, the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the uncles, the aunts, the friends, the mentors, the teachers. And if we all could, just one more time, please give a round of applause to them. Okay. Thank you. They're very proud of you today. I arrived at this place in the fall of 1974 from Brooklyn, New York, exiled by the pending bankruptcy of New York City. I left here to be part of the Attorney General's office in Minnesota, which Walter Mondale and Hubert Humphrey once led. I return here today as a former prosecutor, mayor, United States Senator, and now a proud member of both the D.C. and Minnesota bars. I have a debt of gratitude in my heart for this school and this place, which I predict will grow in your hearts as well. I was taught by giants, Alan Vestal, Arthur Bonfield, Bill Buss, Dean Hines. When I arrived from Brooklyn, I thought Iowa was the only state in the Union where milk was considered a spice. But I grew to love the Midwestern values of neighborliness, idealism, and the stubborn optimism that if we try hard, we can do better. You can take the lawyer out of Iowa, but at least for me, they haven't taken Iowa out of the lawyer. And yes, I do love my Gophers, but I must confess that in non-election years, I still bleed black and gold. My son recently graduated from the University of Minnesota Law School. When I asked him what specialty he was going into, he replied, "I didn't go to law school to be a lawyer. I went to law school to learn how to think." Today he works as a congressional aide in Washington, D.C., where, by the way, crafted academic and legal theories come to die. We may carve equal justice under the law, e pluribus unum, on our buildings, but it seems to me like the standard we operate under is actually Yogi Berra's. In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is. But what you have learned here is a gift for life. Over time, you may forget the content of the case law, but you will never forget the analytical process. That's the most valuable byproduct of your legal education. Thomas Edison once said, "There is no expedient to which a man will go to avoid the real labor of thinking." Real thinking is one of the hardest things a person can do. Simply rearranging your prejudices is among the easiest. St. Thomas Aquinas once said, "Law is an ordinance of reason for the common good, made by him who has care of the community." So as you join the ranks of the profession, I hope you know that your ability to reason for the care of the common good is something of great value, and you're responsible for maintaining it and passing it on. And responsibility for passing it on isn't contingent upon the path that you take once you leave here. Some of you will join the ranks of lawyers in Iowa and elsewhere. Some will be drawn to public service and apply your legal skills in that arena. But many will choose not to enter a courtroom or analyze a statute or regulatory provision. Many of you will take the knowledge you gathered here and move forward to great success in business and in life. I chose a path of public service. I spent 17 years in the Minnesota Attorney General's office, first doing human rights cases and serving as head of the criminal division, and ultimately becoming Minnesota's Solicitor General. And I can tell you at the time I interviewed for the AG's job right here in Iowa City in 1975, if someone would have told me that I would have been in the AG's office for 17 years, I thought I'd been an old bureaucrat by that point in time. But 17 years is a blink of the eye, and I loved being there until I left. In 1993, I got elected mayor of St. Paul and ran for governor in 1998. By the way, in Labor Day that year, I was 20 points behind Hubert Humphrey III, who'd been the Attorney General. I beat Humphrey on Election Day by 5%. The problem there is that there was a third party in that race, a wrestler named Jesse Ventura, who beat me by 2%. I can assure you that I never saw it coming, but in those days, my party, the Republicans, were focused on impeaching Bill Clinton, the Democrats were focused on defending him, and the public set a pox on both your houses. Minnesota survived 4 years of Jesse, and I went back to work at 8 a.m. the very next day after the election. I had the best 3 years of my time in office after that. I had the good fortune of bringing a National Hockey League franchise back to Minnesota, and I got to drop the puck on the ice at the Xcel Energy Center on the opening game. Now, in other parts of the country, I tell folks who don't understand Minnesota hockey that you bring professional hockey back to Minnesota, and people think you can walk on water. Then I remind that in Minnesota, you can walk on water 6 months of the year anyway, 8 months this year, and so it really wasn't a miracle, but it was just a very good thing. So I lost the governor's race I was supposed to win, and then after that, I won a Senate race I was supposed to lose. In 2002, I ran against Senator Paul Wellstone, who died alongside his wife and daughter and other staffers in a horrific plane crash 10 days before the election. Former Vice President Walter Mondale then became the DFL candidate. A former Vice President of the United States, former United States Senator, and Attorney General. He had never lost an election in Minnesota. But at 5 a.m. the day after the election, the AP called the race for me, and at 9 a.m. that morning, the former Vice President, called me and conceded. And finally, 6 years later, in 2008, in a race that I was leading by almost 10 points, a month before the election, before the economic meltdown of 2008, the meltdown of Lehman Brothers, AIG, the fear of a great new depression, on election night, I actually thought that I'd won by a little over 700 votes. Then the machines were rechecked, and now I was ahead by a couple hundred votes. And a month later, when the machines were certified, I was still ahead. But 9 months later, when absentee ballots not counted on Election Day were added in, Al Franken was declared the winner by 312 votes. And life went on. I signed on with an international law firm, Hogan Lovells, which, when it was Hogan Hartson, was home for many years one of this law school's most noted alums in the 60s. He was a gentleman named Ed McDermott. He was John Kennedy's Iowa chair. He was one of those powerful voices in his administration, LBJ's. More recently, Chief Justice Roberts was a partner in my firm. After the election, I put more time and energy to the fight against global AIDS, working with Bono in his group called One. I started a think tank and political action committee, by the way, center-right conservative organizations like those that have recently received undue scrutiny from the IRS. Thankfully, the IRS has publicly apologized for its politically directed reviews. However, a word of caution to those of you who intend to practice tax law. Do not put much precedential value into the IRS apology. If your client is subject to an IRS review, saying you are sorry is not an affirmative defense. Next week, my business takes me to Amman, Jordan, to work on Middle East commercial dialogue. 2 weeks ago, I was in Abuja, Nigeria, and at the Vatican a week before that. My point is that life is full. Regardless of what the vote total was, the job title is, or what bar affiliations you have. And the one message I want to share with you as we begin this life journey with the tremendous gift that the University of Iowa College of Law education is that the skill sets that you have brought to this moment have given you the opportunity for success in any arena. You are highly trained in problem identification and problem analysis. You have the ability to focus on solutions, to communicate both orally and in writing. And those gifts are as relevant in a courtroom as they are in a boardroom. They are as relevant working in an NGO in Africa as they are in a courtroom in Dubuque or a finance office in Minneapolis or New York. And for me, the one common denominator in every position that I have ever had that has allowed me to look back and say, that was the greatest job opportunity I could ever imagine, was because in each one I applied the concept of servant leadership. You wouldn't have gone through the rigors of getting your JD if you didn't believe that the extra effort to make a difference brings value. Everyone in this graduating class has the capacity to lead. Folks like Stephen Covey and Robert Greenleaf have written great treatises on servant leadership, leadership that gives back, that grows community, leadership that recognizes the inherent value of every individual. They are worth reading. Greenleaf has written, great leaders are chosen from among those with a servant's heart. He has identified 10 principles of servant leadership. In our time here today, I will only focus on a few touch points where you can seize that opportunity. And in doing so, transform each and every life opportunity into something you will always cherish. First and foremost, leadership matters. Leadership makes a difference. I think we are living in an anti-leadership era. My generation, the baby boom, was more questioning of authority than my parents. But your generation appears to be even more cynical, more independent than mine. Hierarchical frameworks have been flattened out. We are so interconnected through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram that it seems as if no one is in charge. Perhaps there is the belief that it is better to be unled than misled. But I've got to tell you that no great society, no institution, whether it's business, whether it's church, whether it's government, survives very long without leadership. I believe leadership is one of God's great gifts to humankind. I think we all know it is in the nature of things to fall apart. Anyone in this room past 40 or 50 understands that. It's a basic business axiom. The deal dies 1,000 times. Leadership holds things together that want to fall apart. I believe a leader fulfills a divine purpose. God doesn't ask us to win, doesn't ask us to succeed when we lead. He simply asks us to pick up the ball. We are not guaranteed the outcome, but I believe we are asked to lead. One can argue whether leadership is nature and nurture, but I have no doubt that there are key traits in leadership, particularly servant leadership, that are observable and transferable. Among the most important is humility. Moses, one of the great leaders of my faith tradition, at the burning bush, when God tells him he's chosen to be Israel's deliverer, 3 times he questions his qualifications for the job. A Chicago preacher once said, for the first 40 years of his life, Moses was a somebody living in Pharaoh's palace. For the next 40 years, he was nobody tending sheep on the backside of the desert where he saw the burning bush. For the last 40 years of his life, Moses learned what God could do with a nobody. You don't have to be a somebody to lead, but you do have to learn to listen. That's one of the things that's wrong with Washington these days. The nation is saddled with almost $17 trillion in debt. We've got unfunded liability for Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare of over $100 trillion, meaning you and your kids may get nothing unless change happens soon, and yet we have a partisan divide in Washington that prevents any forward progress. I've seen the polling. The public wants the bickering to stop. They're hungry for leadership that brings people together to solve problems. Listening is an important quality, particularly listening to someone who disagrees with you. You might surprise yourself and actually learn something. Listening doesn't require you to cede your principles, but it shows you can respect someone whose beliefs differ from your own. Moral of the story, the good Lord gave us all 2 ears and 1 mouth, and both politicians and lawyers should use them in that proportion. Servant leadership also requires an ability to conceptualize. You need to dream great dreams. Let me share a few addresses with you. 58 Bagley Avenue, Detroit, Michigan. 4406 Kingsville Avenue, Los Angeles, California. 2066 Chris Drive, Los Altos, California. Our interest is not in the houses on these properties, but on the garages. A coal shed on Bagley Avenue in Detroit was the world's first garage because in it Henry Ford built the world's first mass-produced automobile. On Kingsville Avenue in LA, a guy used an old box and 4 pieces of scrap lumber to build a camera stand in his uncle's garage and do stick figure cartoons. His name was Walt Disney. And over at 2066 Chris, a 12-year-old had the audacity to ask the president of Hewlett-Packard Corporation for some free electronic parts. Bill Hewlett began in a garage himself in 1938. Stephen Jobs got his parts, and he and Stephen Wozniak invented the personal computer 5 years later. Ford Motor, Disney, Apple Computer, they didn't start at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington. They didn't start in Harvard Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They didn't start in Wall Street in New York City. They began in garages. They transformed transportation, entertainment, information processing. They changed government, education, and the economy in absolutely dramatic ways. In America, you can dream great dreams, and they can become reality. The American economy is the engine of opportunity and progress, the likes of which the world has never seen. America's economic miracle is its entrepreneurs and dreamers. We need you. And finally, foresight. Kurt Carlson was a Minnesota who founded gold bond stamps. Your grandparents can explain them to you. But his enterprise became Radisson Hotels, TGI Friday restaurants, and Carlson Wagon Lee Travels. He once said to me, "My success is due to seeing things that others don't and ignoring things that others see." He meant you need to look beyond the curve and not get stopped by short-term challenges. Where naysayers see only problems, you need to see solutions. One of my heroes, Abraham Lincoln, had this gift. While trying to end slavery and keep a nation torn apart by a civil war united, Lincoln worked tirelessly behind the scenes. He had this grand vision of a transcontinental railroad. He wanted to create a technological and engineering feat that had never been done in the history of our country, to literally link America from sea to shining sea. On August 13, 1859, long-shot candidate Lincoln was visiting the Omaha, Nebraska area in search of a few delegates. But he had another reason for being there, because Omaha was the terminus of the railroads, so all the great railroad leaders were there. After his day of campaign, he crossed the river to Council Bluffs, Iowa, to stay at the Pacific Hotel. And over cigars and adult beverages, he had gathered local rail experts for dinner. And he sat on the west-facing porch of the hotel, and Lincoln asked, "What's the best route to the Pacific?" And they pointed northwest to the Platte River Valley. Almost 10 years later, Lincoln had died. The nation had gone through a horrendous civil war. But the Union had been preserved, and the slaves had been freed. And on a mountain pass in Utah, the Golden Spike was driven, completing Lincoln's dream for a nation united from sea to shining sea. Lincoln should be our model and inspiration as a nation. He based his service not on expediency or politics, but on enduring values. He built a team of rivals that had the strength to guide the nation through terrible troubles. He embraced the noblest vision of America and therefore dreamed great dreams. The Lincoln-like qualities of leadership are as relevant today as they were 150 years ago. You need to find your leaders of principle and passion and vision and follow them. Maybe they're sitting right next to you, and maybe they are you. I have great hope for your generation, in part because my children are part of it. I also have to because you run the world that I'm growing old in. Each generation has high hopes of cleaning up the mess its parents have left. Your hope will have to be of a higher order because of the size of the mess we leave you. My apologies for that. Yet I am not fearful of the future. I have great confidence in you. I personally know how well the University of Iowa College of Law has prepared you for the care of this community, and I dearly hope your reasonable faith and your faithful reason will do much to serve the common good. Servant leadership inspires. It doesn't succeed in isolation. Someone once said, "A leader without followers is just a guy taking a walk." I urge you all to dream great dreams, to be true servant leaders. If so, you'll never be walking alone, and the world will be a better place for it. Thank you, God bless, and good luck.
Thank you, Senator Coleman. It was a marvelous speech and very moving, as you can tell. We come now to the most important part of today's program, the conferral of degrees. So I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to invite Provost Butler to join me so that I can present the degree candidates. Provost Butler, on behalf of the faculty of the College of Law, I am proud to present these candidates who have completed all the requirements for the degrees of Juris Doctor and Masters of Law as designated. Members of the class of 2013, please rise and remain standing.
Graduates, by the authority vested in me by the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, I hereby confer on each of you the degree of Juris Doctor or Masters of Law as qualified and designated. Congratulations.
Thank you, Provost. Graduates, you can be seated, but what we're going to do now is the law graduates are going to come forward to be individually introduced by Professor John Mark Stensvag and to receive their doctoral hoods from Professors Christina Bohannon and Emily Hughes. So the first row is going to stand right back up.
Leslie Ellen Aboud. Alexander Bradley Abrams. Jessica Diana Hinkst Allen. Kyle David Anson. Michael Todd Apple. Elizabeth Araguas. Michael Joseph Arleth. Clay William Baker. Abigail Marie Bartine. Richard Aldo Bartolome II. Amanda Marie Bartuzik. Christopher Stephen Bembanista. Sherrod Bajanki. Byron Black. Millie Elizabeth Black. George Blazik. Alexander Scott Bonander. Emily S. Briggs. Nicole Christina Bergmeyer. Jessica Loren Burton. Matthew David Callanan. Abram Vogel Karls. Mauricio Cardona Osorio. Nicholas Alexander Chamus. Siobhan Anise Chapman. Ware Chen. Timothy Scott Christensen. Kate Marie Seagrand. Mrs. Mattie Ramunda Brown Clay. Nichelle Clausen. Billy Burt Coakley. Andrew Webster Craig. John Joseph Sycon. Bryce Kevin Dalton. Elisa Roberts Deal. Kyla Renee Dejani. Pap Malik Indus Jiba. Timothy Edward Doran. Garrett Allen Dozart. Samuel Robert J. Dunn. Derek Michael Eilander. Jennifer Mary Elbert. Susan Patricia Elgin. Joshua Michael Emberton. Adam Jeffrey Falkoff. Laura Ann Feldman. Edward Samuel Fishman. Andrea Fitzgerald. Joseph Anthony Fraioli. Thomas Paul Francis. Katie Lynn Frank. Rachel Ann Friedlander. Samantha Tracy Funk. Thomas Henry Gerberding. Harry Gill. Rachel Elizabeth Gillum. Jessica Christine Gittemeyer. Laura Renee Givens. Noah Gerlitz. Beatriz Gonzalez Alvarez. Clayton Graef. Alex Grasso. Catherine Marie Grendon. Samuel Douglas Griffin. Abigail Lee Grimm. Armin Halilovich. Matthew Parker Hall. Michelle Ann Halverson. Margaret Ann Hansen. Emily Lauren Harper. Nicholas D. Harper. Benjamin Herringa. Bernita Haynes. Alexandra Howard Hemingway. Stephen Hench. Aaron Hirsch. Ryan Tyler Hillesheim. Zachary David Allen Hinkst. Jessica Lee Lubick. Kelsey Anna Hollingshead. Lara Michelle Heyer. Emily Magnuson Ironside. Sarah James. Michael Ernst Jenkins. Lucas Cletus Jensen. Alexander Jacob Scott William Johnson. Ian Johnson. Christopher Elgin Jean Johnston. Courtney Ray Jordan. Charles Michael Judd. Justin Brent Kalamkarian. Philip Aaron Castle. George Randolph Kennedy. Elizabeth Ann Kenyon. Janice S. Kim. Monica Kim. Stephanie Nicole Krause. Andrea Marie Krogstad. Alex Nicholas Crone. Catherine Elizabeth Lawson. Logan Robert Lewis. Aaron Lindebeck. Thank you, Josh. Joshua Lee Lovey. Andrew Joseph Lorelli. Rachel Ann Donahoe Marcourt. John August Moshman. Sean Christopher McAuliffe. Joseph Howard McFarland. Heather Marie McMullen. Dean J. Meester. Lelia Maria Menendez. Gina Marie Christensen Messimer. Tanner Minot. Ian Michael Moody. Andrew Eugene Moore. Chelsea Elizabeth Moore. Jared Vermillion Mullendor. Abai Mukund Nudapuram. Ravi T.K. Narayan. Rachel Ann Nathanson. Bradley Mark Nerderman. Robert John Natupsky. Timothy Nuccio. Elizabeth Megan O'Donnell. Melissa Panzer. Denise Marie Patters. Jessica Clara Polmeyer. Noah Edward Poppelreiter. Zachary Stephen Pratt. Scott Quellhorst. Sandra Casada. Daniel Robert Reed. Seth Alexander Reed. Travis William Reed. Hannah Marilyn Reitman. Andrew Roth. Michael Aaron Rogers. Samantha Rollins Rump. Alec Allen Ross. Carolyn Rebecca Russell. Nicholas Schroeder. Alex William Schulte. Heidi Ann Schuster. Darcel Alexis Skeet. Bradley David Sloter. Braden J. Smith. Tiffany Christine Spohr. Colin Talia. Dasha Ternovska. Jennifer Lane Terry. Grace Thomandrew. Jake Ronald Thompson. James Thompson. Christopher John Euban. Lauren Tate Ulrich. Brandon Underwood. Lauren Marie Utley Dixon. Philip Frederick Van Loo. Sean William Wandrow. Carolyn Ann Warner. Brianna Margaret Weber. Brian Andrew Wilbert. Zachary Alma Wiest. Catherine Willie. Daniel Edwin Williamson. Matthew Franklin Wolford. Catherine Yin. Samuel Young. Iftikhar Zaim. Julia Catherine Zelensky. Rachel Tonjes Zander. Lee Chong. Lisette Theodora Henrika Peters.
So one more time, join me in congratulating the class of 2013. Before we close, I am charged to add a few words of farewell to the newest alumni of the Iowa College of Law. You entered our shared profession at a time of great challenge, but you must never forget that you were taking your places as part of a proud and distinguished legacy. The Iowa College of Law was founded as a frontier law school, admitted students motivated to study law without regard to race or gender, even before Iowa gained statehood. With statehood, the first citizens declared the motto of the new state: "Our liberties we prize, and our rights we will maintain." And how are these liberties and rights to be maintained? The late President John F. Kennedy might have said it best. Certain other societies respect the rule of force. We respect the rule of law. As lawyers, you will be guardians of the rule of law. You will be charged to uphold the Constitution, to protect the liberties and the rights we prize, and to pursue justice in all you do. The orderly transition of public power and the peaceful resolution of private disputes will be entrusted to you as members of the legal profession. You will help your clients and our nation with problems large and small. This is a great privilege, as well as a heavy responsibility. I ask you to embrace it and make it your own. As you leave the College of Law to take up this path, I am obligated to remind you that you were prepared for this noble calling, the practice of a learned art in the public interest, in a public law school. Farmers in their fields, the cashiers at your local Hy-Vee, the people of Iowa contributed to the cost of your legal education. Today, I ask you to think seriously about how you will pay it forward. The need is great, and your options many. I know you will choose well as you fulfill this moral obligation to those who have helped you come along to this great day. So now, on behalf of your teachers, the staff, and the rising 3Ls who long to sit right where you are right now, I offer you our affection, our admiration, and our sincere congratulations. The 2013 commencement exercise is now adjourned. After the recessional, I hope all of you will join us for a reception at the Boyd Law Building. Congratulations.